also change the seats as you wish.
It doesn't matter. Where am I sitting?
Here.
Yeah? Okay, fine. That's it. Thank you. Okay. All right.
The right machine.
Bing in the bag for that. I think I'll be dealing with Marxism and law first, so the excerpt from you have it.
Morning, Margaret.
Is that on the PowerPoint? Marxism and law, or it's handed out?
It's handed
Okay,
out.
fine. All right.
抄水入嚟你哋個電腦度啊？呢個
係啊。
呢個我以為你用手提。
唔係因為個長嘅問題。其實你
咁啊 send， 我用 email send 嗰個 file 俾你，因為 Ben 想要一個擺去你哋嘅嗰個。
哦 ，OK， 哦好，或者我 copy 落呢一部電腦咧，咁我一陣自己完咗之後，我 copy 翻落我哋嗰度。
佢而家你細咗呢度。
係啊係啊，咁邊一個係嗰個
to be print out 嗰度。
呢一個。
Hello, good morning.
呢一個係咪？
Nice to meet you.
係啦。
就你一陣present 嘅時候需唔需要用？你一陣係咪都需要用到呢一個？
係啊，係我用佢嚟 present 嘅。
就可能要麻煩你到陣時就企喺呢一度。係啊。呢個係
remote control 啦。
呢個 remote control 係啊，或者你如果坐喺嗰邊嘅話，就都可以用呢個 remote control 去撳得到嘅。係啦。咁中間呢度。You come to
I'm just going to get a copy of the printout myself.
唔該晒，唔該晒，唔該晒，唔該晒。O 唔 OK 啊？嗰個？或者係咯。會唔會
？OK， 係因為坐喺度就。
如果唔係就企喺度。
如果唔係就呢一度。
呢度有個。
呢度你就可以望住個電腦。
呢度望住佢。
係啊。
咁有張凳嘅可以較高啲。
係啊，有張凳可以較高。
咁嗰個 schedule 就係我哋兩個講完之後，
係啦，跟住
就 discussion 係咪？有個 break， 咁然之後就係，OK。
我哋先啦，我哋邊
我想坐呢邊。
好啦，呢個直位。
佢今日有個graduation。Welcome everyone. We have a big room with small group. So this is the fifth seminar in the series. The series it's about the rule of law and the legal culture in Hong Kong. It is developed from a research project that we did a mass survey to 3,500 Hong Kong citizens and also 35 internal experts, government officials, judges, lawyers, and so on. So we compare the results, and this seminar, this particular one, it's a general or a summary, you may say, of the theory of the research project. The title of the project of the seminar is Democratic Values, Legal Culture, and the Rule of Law. We have two speakers. First is Professor Guan. Professor Guan is the Emeritus Professor of the Department of Government and Public Administration in the CUHK. And Ms. Gladys Lee, SE. Ms. Lee, she's the former chairman of the Hong Kong Bar Association, and both of them are the founding members of the Civic Party. So, and I'll give time to Professor Guan first, and then Ms. Lee. Thank you.
Is it on? Or can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Good morning. I'm very excited by this invitation to come and share with you my humble understanding or views about what is democracy to mean, and why it's valuable. Okay. This is the structure of my presentation. The starting question is about democracy, what it is, and what is it valuable 4. Okay. The first question will take up a lot of slides of my PowerPoint file, but I will go through very, very quickly because I assume that you have already some knowledge about it. Then I come to the second section. It consists of 3 different kinds of values. There is the instrumental ones, an intrinsic one, and last but not least, the constitutive kind of value that we are about to talk. Then at the end of the presentation, I will emphasize that for a rigorous understanding of the value of democracy, we really need a view of the human person. What is the human person? Is the human person valuable animal at all? So therefore, we should come to the concept of human dignity. And I would argue that it provides a foundation for constituting the most fundamental or foundational value of democracy. Then I will now offer a conclusion at the end. What is democracy? Why is it valuable? In order to answer the second question, the value of democracy, we actually need to pick out the most significant aspect of it and subject it for normative valuation. And then we encounter thereby a big difficulty, a huge difficulty, because nowadays we have so many democracies with adjectives. I have counted in our academic literature, social science as a whole and political science in particular, there's at least 50 different kinds of democracy, depending on what level of the ladder of abstraction will go up and down, how many specifications you want to add to the supposedly core meaning of democracy. And this is a result of the blooming of empirical research after the Second World War, because there are so many new democracies established. So are they really democracy? Has been the debate until now. Out of this whole sets of democracies with adjective, I would like to introduce to you two most fundamental pair of concepts. The first one is electoral democracy, or more precise is procedural democracy that put the emphasis on the procedure in the operation of when democracy is put into operation. What are the procedures involved, etc. And then the correlative is the representative democracy. Then the second pair is perhaps the contrast to the first one, starts with the concept of direct democracy as practiced in the ancient time, let's say in Athens of Greece. And then its partner concept as practiced nowadays in most of the democratic countries is called participatory democracy. The electoral democracy is about the minimum requirements of procedure for democracy to work. It was made popular by political economists in the 1950s, called Joseph Schumpeter, in his famous book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. He simply defined democracy as a method in which institutional arrangements are available for politicians to compete for the vote of the people. And then they will represent and make political decisions on behalf of the people. So what is democracy available? Is the production of a government. Government by the representatives of the people. And therefore, it is a rule by politicians, by the representatives, and not by the people. And supplement or necessitate, or as a precondition, you need a mechanism for competition between the leaders for the people's vote. Okay. This is apparently a very thin, a very minimalist understanding of democracy, and therefore had invited a lot of criticism for bypassing an examination of the true nature of democracy. And there come another very famous heavyweight political scientist from the Yale University, Robert Dahl, D-A-H-L. He attempted to expand Schumpeter's procedural requirements by adding at least 5 more preconditions or supplementary instruments to make the democracy work better. In fact, Professor Robert Dahl is not a believer in democracy, because in his book titled Polyarchy, he used polyarchy all the time instead of democracy, because he believed that democracy is impossible. So we can only attempt to get at some approximation, and that is polyarchy. So the elements of his polyarchy consists of 5 points. The first point is blah, blah, nothing essential to me. The second point is a repetition of what Schumpeter has already said, only with a requirement that is free and fair, competitive election without coercion. And what is new is the hidden concept of political equality. So all adults must have the right to vote, to become, for a government to become a polyarchy. And not just the right to vote, as we insist in Hong Kong, the right to run is equally important. And then there are other different rights, freedom to freedom of expression, etc., etc. That is already commonly known to you as requirements of democracy. But these are all requirements, instrumental requirements. They are not really value per se. But before we really go to value per se, let us look at a different academic attempt or social political practice called representative democracy movement in the United States. The United States is a big country, and therefore it seems apparent that the direct democracy is impossible, and therefore, so self-government by the people can only be an ideal. In practical terms, you need to let the people choose their representatives and let the people representative govern and rule. So it admits that we need to focus on electoral democracy that is ruled by the representative. But what is important is that they have transformed Schumpeter's original motivation to identify the formation of government by the instrument of vote as a defining characteristic of democracy, transform it to another concern about the nature of an instrument. The instrument is effective government. The direct democracy is ineffective in a big country. So to be effective, but still that can be called democratic, is that you let the people vote, elect the representative to the government. But after the election, the people should leave the representative alone most of the time, so that they can effectively govern. Okay. So if democracy is valuable because it can produce effective government, then what is democratic about? Then it's democratic insofar that political leaders still remain restrained by the prospect of periodic election. If you do not perform well, you will be replaced next time. And also, such a representative democracy is still democratic because citizens still have the residual right to participate in case of need. So in normal times, business as usual. So the people care about their own private business. But when it comes to decision, then you can rebel. So the right to rebel is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution anyway, if the government fails to ensure the fundamental goods is enshrined in that sacred document. And last but not least, in the United States, in a big country of that practice representative democracy, you can still have direct democracy in the restricted domain, in the local at the local level of the national government. these are the remedies of the direct democracy kind for the weaknesses to remedy the weakness of representative democracy. And these are all known to you. I need not explain: initiative, referendum, and recall. So after direct democracy and representative democracy, we can examine what is after the electoral democracy and representative democracy, we can go to the contrast typology. Direct democracy of ancient Athens. And the following 6 characteristics of Athenian democracy are taken from Pericles' funeral oration at the end of the Peloponnesian War, and as Pericles' view as reconstructed by Thucydides. I usually cannot pronounce this Greek name correctly. Thucydides. Okay. The first one is a rule in the hands of the many, and most important of all, there's an equal justice. And then this is perhaps the essence of Athenian democracy. Is in exact code. When a citizen in any way distinguished, he is preferred to the public service. Okay. So and then there's no exclusion in public life. And the engagement in public life is pervaded by spirit to serve, to serve the general public, to serve the republic. Okay. And surprisingly, given all these freedoms, equality, and preference to serve, etc., and there's a widespread respect for the authorities and for the law. But the most important characteristic of Athenian democracy is the identity of political life and the whole life of citizens in Athens. So, meaning that citizens in Athens manage their own business in all domains of the life world, and they participate in the decisions about everything. So it's both political as well as the development of the whole life for every citizens in Athens. And later on, I would argue to move beyond instrumental value of democracy, the horizons should be elevated. It's not just confined to a very small area and very technical issues of consequence and outcome, etc. It's about the human person herself. It's about the life of everybody living in such a community. So and that life should be of quality, and the quality is not material. It's not materialistic. It's not material. No. Yes. Well, the Athenian democracy is ancient. In modern times, it seems very difficult to implement. Of course, the cantons in Switzerland still exhibit admirable ways of direct democracy. Okay, and therefore we can talk about a substitute that is more prevalent in today's world. Practically in most of democracy in the world these days, we have so-called representative democracy. It's not exactly the rule by the people, it's the rule by their representatives. But still, apart from the representative politics part, the mass should be expected to be more active as the circumstances allowed it. And there's therefore another movement called participatory democracy, or in academic terms, participatory theory of democracy. So it is a theory against what is understood as the operation of pluralism or procedural democracy in the United States in the 1950s. Pluralism is a concept. Pluralism as a form of government, pluralistic governance, is a concept by, again, the Yale professor Robert Dahl. He argues that in Yale, the city, the democracy practiced there is not decision by all, nor decisions by the majority, but is a decision by various minorities. Means that it is a political community with very different kinds of people, with different kinds of interests, and the people participate only in policy domains that has effect on their their interest. Okay, they participate actively and can exert really influence on the decision with regard to that particular public interest. And there are cross-cutting relations among these interests, among these minorities. So therefore, there's no single minority that can dominate in the whole political life of Yale. In that sense, it's a pluralistic form of polyarchy. And that is the most practical, and that's democratic as far as the people's interests are concerned. Because the people is not an integrated whole. The people consist of many minorities. And all the interests of all the minorities has been taken care of by these pluralistic processes. So sounds very justified. But other scholars or other political practitioners disagree because well, after all, Yale is a special case. It cannot be arbitrarily generalized to the United States, not to speak to the whole world. And therefore, there's a movement that want to move back to a direct participation of citizens in as many policy domain as possible. The emphasis here now is not exactly on a correspondence between the democratic process on the one hand and the fulfillment of interest of the people, whether general or particular, is this identity is no longer the emphasis in this theory and in this movement. It is the citizens themselves. It's the realization of citizenship. Right? So democracy value lies in the realization of citizenship. Citizenship as a virtue that the citizens should not care only about their own narrow personal interest, but care about the whole life of the community. They should be empowered by various measures, such as freedom of the press and access to information, so that they can become informed and educated in making decisions in voting their representative, etc. And the actions of this of citizens in this understanding is an exercise of the autonomy of citizens. Is an exercise of carrying out a responsibility. And it is, of course, in itself a kind of self-governance. And this movement is not restricted to the political sphere only, but should be promoted also across the economic as well as social fields. Therefore, you can see after the 1970s, a lot of so-called direct actions appear in the politics of the United States. Now, after a quick examination of this democracy with adjective, we come close to an understanding of what democracy is to mean. It is a self-rule of the citizens of a community as political equals, while institutional arrangements to ensure active participation in political decision making. 3 words left. Let's so elaborate a little bit on the first sentence by reference to 2 very important political philosopher, or in the latter case is also a very important sociologist. The first one is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and the second one is Max Weber. They have actually written much about the democracy, and I tried to summarize all their work just in a few lines. Okay. So, and I try to combine them to make my presentation easy. So the essence of the republic, that is the political body in question that is to be developed, lies in the union of freedom and obedience, so that the words subject and sovereign are identical correlatives. So this is a recognition of the human person in politics as consisting of 2 personalities. One is a subject, is subject to be governed, is subject to government. But on the other hand, is sovereign. The human person is his own sovereign. He is subject to his own command but also he commands himself. Okay, so this is a very crazy concept, but actually is what has been attempted to fulfill by theories, philosophers from ancient time up to now. How can we be both sovereign and subject at the same time in a context, in a modern context of the world? It's so complicated, so many interrelationships, central local government relations, globalization, regionalization, and so on. Okay, but anyway, what does it mean? The identity between subject and sovereign. It means that the citizenship is a transformation of the individual person, of the private individual, to become a public individual. Okay, so it is a transcendence of the private, to have a public characteristic. Okay, and this, as a citizen, as a citizen. So the identity between the citizen as a subject and the citizen as a sovereign is actually citizen as subject and citizen as sovereign. This identity can only be accomplished when the citizens in action constantly ask what the general will or what the common good demands. So in that way, the citizen can be transformed from sovereign to subject, from subject to sovereign at the same time. So this should be, later on, I will argue, should be the value of democracy. Democracy is equivalent to a process of attaining this union, this identity, equivalent to transform the human person into from a private one to a public one, and by this reformed human person, the common good of a community, a human community, can be attained. Now, I jumped too far to the conclusion or near conclusion. But before we really get into that, we need to revisit the instrumental value of democracy, or the instrumental perspective of what democracy is valuable. And that's the next slide. Have you, how many minutes do I have? 5 minutes. Okay, let me go fast.
Yeah, I think you can.
Now,
Yeah, I think you can.
I start by using quotes from politicians to give you examples about what is instrumental value of democracy as understood. And this is from Winston Churchill's speech before the Free Trade Hall in Manchester on the 23rd May 1909. Here you have the quote. If I had to sum up the immediate future of democratic politics in a single word, I should say insurance. So democracy is an insurance Insurance against what? Against domestic as well as international dangers. Okay. What these dangers are were not specified, but the important is the concept that the insurance is instrumental. If you have democracy, you are living in a world free of risk. So it's good from the negative. When we talk about whether something is good, we can look at the positive side. What good does it bring? Or you can look from the different side, what it can prevent. So, for example, before going to the next paragraph, we sometimes say that democracy cannot ensure, let's say, prosperity or stability or whatever, but it can prevent misuse of power. So it's insurance. It's a preventive value of democracy. And this is what Amartya Sen has written in many of his writings. He said, in the terrible history of famines in the world, no substantial famine has ever occurred in any independent and democratic country with a relatively free press. Here in mind the Great Famine in China. And compare with Indian, much more underdeveloped, but relatively more relatively democratic and with the free press, never had famine of that scale as it happened in China. The next more academic example that extols the instrumental value of democracy is the theory or thesis of democratic peace. And there's two aspects. The first is democracy can ensure domestic peace. It's very obvious because they no longer need for conflict to resolve the transfer of political power. Okay? You just transfer political power by using election. Okay? This is peaceful resolution of conflict for political power in any domestic sense. Then the international peace. There are many empirical studies that has established the regularity where democracies rarely or even never fought against each other. Although they fought against non-democratic countries. So there are many reasons given to this result, but I'm not going into that. Perhaps just one important element in democracy is that political opposition is allowed. Political opposition. So there's a chance that the political opposition does not agree with the government to go to war with another country. But this theoretical argument has been challenged by many scholars on many different grounds. First is problem of measurement. This measurement has to do with what is a democracy. Okay, so you have to settle that before you can say democracy never fight against democracy. Okay. And even when the theory is right, it may not really may not be due to causality. It may just by chance, because the big wars are anyway rare in the world, particularly after the world wars. So given small n of wars, or it can be just a random result. And after all, there's not much theoretical foundation for this theory. Not even the one that there's a polar opposition, and therefore it may disagree, and therefore war may not happen. But this is still an empirical question. Really, maybe the political opposition are as much eager as the government to go to war. Okay. And apart from the last critiques I have just presented, so there's a further argument. Now, even if such an instrument is real and caused by the democracy, there's still a major problem. There may be other alternatives equally good or even better than democracy. Then how can we arrive at the conclusion that the democracy is valuable for that particular consequence? Okay. There's another argument for the democratic, for the instrumental value, that is correspondence between election and serving of the people's interests. This may be true, empirically, this may be true, okay? But even if it's true, this is a theoretical argument. Why is such a correspondence good? The people's interests may be wrong. It's just their subjective understanding of interest. Their subjective interest may actually result in the foregoing of the objective interest of the voters. That is, of course, a philosophical argument. But more powerful than above, the two arguments above is the Kenneth-Arrow's impossibility theorem. If the value of democracy lies in its instrumental value, but if democracy is impossible, then the thesis breaks down. Democracy is impossible and arbitrary. His argument is based about the key, the key ingredient, the so-called significant aspect or dimension of an understanding of democracy, that is election. Election deals with the aggregation of individual interest or preference into a social solution. Okay? So individual interests, preference have to be aggregated into a social one in order to be translated into policies and law. Can there be a procedure of aggregation that fulfills the demands, the theoretical normative demands of individual preferences? Okay. there are many demands, 5, 6 demands according to candidate. Let me give just a very easy, simple example that you all know about. Every preference, every vote on preference, A's vote on his preference of candidate, okay, must be weighed equally as every other vote of voters with respect to their equal weight, vote weighting. And he has given a simple mathematical exercise. Now, the exercise is meant to demonstrate that it's impossible to arrive at one alternative as socially preferred to another. Now, let's suppose we have 3 voters, 1, 2, and 3. And there are 3 preferences, 3 results, policy results, A, B, and C, with different values, benefits, A, B, and C. And this is the ranking of the preference by the 3 individuals, voters. A prefers A to, number 1 prefers A to B, B to C. And 2 and 3, etc. Given such a configuration, and given the normative demand of democracy, how can we arrive at that? How can we aggregate them into one authoritative decision, authoritative democracy? It's impossible. A simple exercise can begin with a pairwise competition. Okay, let's let number 1 and number 3 compete with each other. Then A is preferred to B and A preferred to B, 2. Okay, so you win out. This should be the policy. Sounds good. But then voter 2 is being left out. This is like football or basketball play, and so you pair the teams, and then the winning team would come into the second round of competition. It depends how you pair, which pair comes first or comes later. Unluckily, you may lose in the first round by being paired with a stronger one, and then you will lose the chance to be the second winner in the game. That's unfair, because if you pair differently, you pair 1 with 2, B is preferred to C. B is preferred to 1. B is preferred to C. For number 2 also, B also preferred to C. So B should the policy should win out. Okay. Therefore, in order to solve such an impossibility, there are many different kinds of electoral rules. The Condorcet rule, the Boda rule, etc. All these are arbitrarily designed in order to get a result, to get a social aggregation. Okay. But in Hong Kong, there's a perfect example. If you change the single district plurality vote system, compared to now the proportional what called I forgot the remainder formula. Given the same preferences, the result of transformation from votes to seat is different. So in that sense, it is arbitrary. So I said it already. If you're interested into all these technicalities, I can give you a handout about the basics of election that explains how the different electoral rule operates and what the problem, what the individual problems are. Now, since Kenneth Arrow's time, it seems much more self-evident that it's futile to justify democracy in terms of instrumental value, because there are so many different instrumental results, it is a consequence, that can be produced by perhaps better alternatives or forms of government. And therefore, it's more prudent to look for the intrinsic values. That is, democracy is valuable for its own sake. Again, I use Winston Churchill to make it easy, more interesting perhaps. How is the word democracy to be interpreted? My idea of it is that the plain, humble, common man, just the ordinary man who keeps a wife and family, who goes off to fight for his country when it's in trouble, goes to the poll at the appropriate time and puts his cross on the ballot paper, showing the candidate he wishes to be elected to parliament. That he is the foundation of democracy. And it's also essential to this foundation that so to vote without fear of punishment, etc. If that is democracy, I salute it, I espouse it, and I would work for it. What's important is the spirit behind his pronouncement. He is the foundation of democracy. And this he is the ordinary man, the plain, humble, common man. Okay? And by exercise of the vote, he is to be respected because he has carried out his citizenship. Okay? As he cared for his family, as he cared for his country, etc. So, from politician to academic. This is theories about intrinsic values by American political scientist Carl Cohen, and the book is exactly called The Intrinsic Value of Democracy, published in 1973. So he regards autonomy as a value of democracy. Autonomy of the human person, of the citizen. The autonomy is valued not for its consequence, but for its own sake. Because it is about the realization of the autonomous, the free person. Democracy, therefore, is self-government. The emphasis is self. And the technical procedure, if we speak from the instrumental perspective, is participation in the governance of a community. And then for the conditions for the democratic practice as a realization of autonomy, you need three different values, additional values. There's liberty, equality, and fraternity. Without liberty, your vote or your participation, other forms of participation, cannot be realized. And according to Cohen, equality here is used to justify democracy. It is not a intrinsic value on its own, and that has to be revised later on by others. The fraternity is the precondition for a democratic community, such as the fraternity evident in ancient Athens. They are all, according to Cohen, intrinsically valuable. Although the relationship between autonomy and liberty, on the one hand, liberty, equality, and fraternity is not completely clear in this book. To clarify the relationship between a multitude of intrinsic values, we need we need an additional dimension. There should be a hierarchy of values. Which one is more important, more significant for the fulfillment of the human person as a human person, different from animals. And this comes to the discussion about constitutive value of democracy. And among the contributions, there's a book that stands out, written by James Hyland, called Democratic Theory, The Philosophical Foundations. It's very philosophical. It's a philosophical and normative justification of democracy, published by Manchester University Press, 1995. He defined the constitutive value of democracy as a public recognition of equal status, an extension of the right to equal participation in decisions. Public recognition. We members of the human person are not human in the sense of a exclusive concern about our physical existence, about fulfillment of our materialistic interest, and so on. But we need to live as a genuinely human being. Okay. And therefore, I need recognition. I need respect. I respect my fellow human persons, and I expect my fellow human persons to respect me as a human person. So this recognition of equal humanhood is very important for a form of government. Okay, and this should be public. And the introduction of citizenship, the institutional citizenship is a public acknowledgement of the equal worth of members of a community. And this equality in respect, equality in recognition should be expressed in the practice of democratic participation and enshrined, protected by law, regarded as rights. So this public recognition, rights to equal participation, they are intrinsic, invaluable to us. And they are of fundamental importance. They are democracy itself. Democracy, the nature of democracy itself is public recognition of equal status and law-based guarantee of the practice of equal participation. Okay. How can we justify this ultimate constitutive value? The philosopher said, Hayden said that, well, it's very difficult to justify by words. But he invited readers to imagine another scenario, the contrary scenario. Imagine this. We are publicly pronounced as inferior, or not we. Let's say our younger generations who proclaim the fight for Hong Kong independence. Okay, they are now excluded from the Legislative Council. So why? Well, because of this oath-taking mistakes. But they may also be regarded by people as, well, they have no blame. They have no blame. They're inexperienced. They don't know how to play politics. They don't know how to behave as worthy members of the legislature, and therefore they are unfit for this office. So people may be denied the right of citizenship. They are denied that. Why? Because, or perhaps because they are regarded as uninformed, unable to make rational decisions, and therefore they cannot rule themselves. They have to be ruled by others, and that's why there are always citizens and non-citizens in the countries from the past to the present, or even to future. There's always categorization of who qualifies and who do not qualify. So therefore, democracy is valuable because the worth of a human person as a citizen in a political community is recognized. Is of the right to participate into the decision-making of that community. And that's integral. That concept is integral to the concept of democracy. So it's not democracy produce worth. It is democracy must be a process of worth conferring. It must be a process of self-development. It must be a process of the development of the community as a whole. That is a community worthy to live in. So that's basically Highland's argument. Well, when it comes to that, we can only imagine the contrary situation. It seems to me an unfinished business. Then you need a leap of faith. You just accept it or not. I must profess that I have a religious belief. Therefore, I think that we need a concept of human dignity. We need to believe that we human beings are dignified because of, according to my faith, you know what I mean. But if you have no faith, you are just a Confucian. Just as a Confucian, Confucius, who has said that by 修身, by the self-nurturement, I can also become a saint. 成圣之道在乎修身. This without reference to religious foundation, 小人, the little man in Confucian teaching can become 君子, can become gentleman, can transform into gentleman, ultimately into a saint by self-nurturement. So this is from the worthless person to a person that has dignity. That is a very important belief that for form of government to operate worthy of the name of democracy, worth the name of democracy, because it transcends machine politics. It transcends bureaucratic politics. It transcends any other instrumental politics only for the production of some tangible material goods. Now, not the good of the human person itself. So this is the end of the presentation. I'm sorry that it has taken up so much time. And thank you. No concluding remarks. You can read the hard copy or e-copy of the concluding remark here.
Thank you, Professor Grant. Thank you for this very informing presentation, and I'm sure we all enjoyed the time. And so we'll have a coffee break in here for 15 minutes, and then we'll come back for Ms. Lee's presentation. Thank you.